morning. At the tone, the time will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Exactly.
Woke up this morning without a warning. Words were still ringing in my head. It came, it seemed within my dream. A gentle voice, and this is what it said. Stop now, you got to stop and listen to what I say. Stop and feel that you've been missing.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom, Ramon, and LFE. Tonight we are interviewing Garnet Schulhauser. Yes.
Oh, welcome, guys. Welcome. That's LFE. He is one of the new co-hosts here for the 100th Monkey Radio. And as you guys heard last week, Ramon is moving on to some bigger and better things. But we are lucky enough to have him here for this show with Garnet. So how you doing over there, Ramon?
Pretty good. Let's see. Just trying to promote the newest book that I put out, which is a kid's book called Children of the World, and focusing on that and trying to get the second science fiction book out by the summer. So trying to keep busy.
Yeah. So when's the children book? Is it out now? Out?
Yeah. Yeah, that's out now. So you can go to you can go to Amazon, and order it. Or if you prefer, you can go to the bookstore and they'll order it for you. Any bookstore can order it. But you can do the same thing if you order from Amazon.
When are you going to start Ramon's Reading Corner on YouTube?
Yeah, I need to find a camera. I don't have a camera. The only camera I have is yours.
Oh, well, you could use, I mean, if you...
actually, I can use the computer, yeah.
Yeah, you can use a laptop there. That you got pretty good camera in that. That'd turn out all right. I just think that'd be cool as shit for you to read the book online and like you're reading in front of a classroom, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome stuff. So anything happening out there in the world that you want to share with the audience today, Ramon?
Actually, I had some, let me see, I had something, it was something basic, exopolitics.org, which is a friend of ours who's been on the show a couple of times, Michael Sala's website. It's pretty much recruitment and covert service for the secret space program. I'll read the first paragraph here. Let me just get closer. Okay, so Corey, aka Good E.T., recently has emerged as a new source of information on multiple space programs, the secret space programs, and breakaway civilization from Earth. In an early article, I summarize his public testimony revealed through 2 internet forums and public presentation by David Wilcock on the nature of these covert programs. In a later article released on April 7th, I presented Corey's response to a series of questions I emailed him. His answer revealed a remarkable degree of complexity in terms of the number of participants, programs, and extraterrestrials. Alliances related to 5 secret programs run by various military, government, and corporate entities from our contemporary time period alone. The whole thing with the secret space program, it reminds me so much of Stargate. And in Stargate, I noticed that one of the themes that they keep beating you on the head with is, what would happen if this came out? Or
Right.
if you remember, if anybody's ever watched the Stargate TV series, SG-1, that's the, they always mention that, and the reason for the secrecy and stuff like that. So I don't know, you can say, oh, that's just science fiction and you guys are pulling on strings that are not there, or is something, really happening like that, and this is just a way to get the public to understand why the secrecy.
Yeah, it sounds more like an excuse to me, Ramon. The public can't handle the truth. Well, you've never tried us before. Why don't you try us to see what happens?
Well, they can't really use that excuse. Well, they justify it by going back to things like the day the Earth stood still, or War of the Worlds. Excuse me.
War of the World.
We did that radio broadcast in, what was it, 1934 or whatever it was, and half of the East Coast went crazy. So. I guess they're using that as using that as a gauge on why, or justification of why they don't want to tell the population, because they think they'll all go lunatic and burn down the barn.
So
anyway,
they say.
Yeah. And then they have the Brookings report. That one there is probably the one that they use more often, but. Anyhow, I think times are changing so fast here in the level of consciousness on the planet, and the knowledge base that we all have in just looking up at the sky and seeing this stuff out there, that I think we're going to have to be getting close to a point where it's acknowledged, officially acknowledged.
The truth is, it's kind of sad, but the truth is that I think the majority of people don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the majority of people will probably think something along this line, like, are they going to pay my bills? No.
Exactly.
Does it matter? No.
Do I still have to go to work?
Yeah.
But they don't understand that if that reality comes in and that technology that comes along with it starts being used here on this planet, then our whole social paradigm shifts in a big way. We see things, if we get that energy thing down, just that energy thing, if we get that down, the free energy, then all bets are off the table at that point, because if it doesn't cost anything to power anything, then what do you need to charge anybody anything for in the first place?
Yeah, which I
go to a cashless society,
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but I think the majority of people don't even. First of all, if you mention even the word free energy, first thing they say is that doesn't exist. It's
right.
Like that belongs with Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny. So.
Well, that's that condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, right?
But it's changing.
Well, yeah.
It's changing right now, though.
It is changing. I'm speaking on a global level of the majority of people, their mentality as far as why it wouldn't be dangerous for it to come out, because I think the majority of people would just be like, oh, really? Wow. And then move on.
Well, we have to get our guests' input on this when we bring them in here. I think that'd be definitely an interesting question to field there. So we have Garnet Schulhauser with us tonight, and he was back on, I guess it was many
moons ago,
2013 that we had him on, when his first book, Dancing on a Stamp, came out. And Garnet Schulhauser, he's Dancing Forever with Spirit, continues the saga of the author's spiritual awakening that began when he was confronted on the street by a homeless man named Albert, who turned out to be a wise spirit in disguise, an emissary from the spirit world, as recounted in the author's first book, Dancing on a Stamp. In this sequel, the author describes his most recent exploits on Albert, who appeared in his bedroom one night to guide him on a series of out-of-body adventures to explore a dazzling white city on the spirit side. other planets in the galaxy with intriguing life forms, and some of the far-flung regions of our planet that suffer from human abuse. These fascinating astral excursions included a visit to a water planet where the resident cetaceans implore humans to stop the carnage of their cousins on Earth, a rendezvous with a benevolent race of extraterrestrial beings who have been observing Earth for eons, and a trip to another dimension to observe the idyllic world of humans who have made the shift to the new Earth. With guidance from Albert, the author gains access to the Akashic Records, which contain the history of every life in the universe, to view some of the gripping episodes from several of his previous lives that were often tragic but always enthralling and thought-provoking, and to sneak a glimpse into the secret life of Jesus. These nightly escapades with Albert were designed to rouse us from our callous stupor by displaying some of the inexcusable abuse humans inflict on Mother Earth, the other creatures on our planet, and other humans, with the hope that we will renounce the dark side of humanity in favor of spiritual enlightenment. Dancing Forever with Spirit is a call to action for humanity, a plea from Spirit for humans to wake up and recognize the harm caused by their actions and neglect, so they can focus their energy on helping themselves and everyone else make the transition to the new Earth. His website is www.garnetschulhauser.com. And Garnet, it is an absolute pleasure to have you back on the 100th Monkey Radio.
The pleasure's all mine, gentlemen. I'm happy to be here. I remember our show 2 years ago. It was a wonderful show. I'm hoping we can do a repeat.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure of it. I just love this whole story, the way it all came out, and the way things unfolded for you. Coming out of the corporate world as a lawyer, and then bam, having your whole paradigm just shook up and taken into a whole different reality. What an interesting and amazing experience. And we will have a link on this in the info section here to the first show, guys. So I would urge you to go back and listen to that first show also, where you can get a much deeper and fuller understanding of Garnet's experience with Albert in his first book, Dancing on a Stamp. We're definitely going to focus primarily on this new work and Dancing Forever with Spirit. And but before we head there, Garnet, would you just give us a really quick synopsis of how this all unfolded for you, how you met Albert, and then we'll move on into Dancing Forever with Spirit.
Sure. It was back in 2007, Tom. I was still practicing law, and I went for a stroll one afternoon on the pedestrian street in front of our building. It was like any other afternoon, except all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this homeless man jumps out in front of me and stops me in my tracks. Now, typically, I would do a quick sidestep and go around these people because they're often hanging around on that street. But this guy was different because he had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes that were penetrating, first of all, deeply. I felt that he's looking deep within my soul and that he knew everything about me, even though we'd never met. But the second thing was that he was sending me this wave of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace and security. So I didn't move. I stood there like a deer caught in headlights, and it was like a time warp. I don't know how long I stood there, and I didn't really care how long it was either. I was just enjoying the amazing feeling from this guy. And then he broke the spell by saying, why are you here? And then he quickly disappeared. Well, I tried to find him in the store he went into, looked in the street, couldn't find him. Next day I came back determined I was going to find this guy. I had to find out who he was and why he stopped me. And so after walking up and down the same street for a while, I saw him sitting on a bench. And I went up to him and I said, who are you and why did you stop me yesterday? And he said, I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to help you on your journey and to answer all of your questions. And my lawyer brain kicked in and I was a bit skeptical, Tom. And I said to him, how can you help me? Because you look like you've been sleeping on the street for weeks and you smell like a dead fish. And he gave me a big smile and he said, looks can be deceiving, he said, because you look like you're a corporate lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade. He said, if you want to, you can turn around and go back to your office and see if you can find the answers you've been searching for in all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down and talk to me. So my intuition said, yes, I need to talk to this guy. I sat down, and that began our conversation. And it turned out that he told me he was really one of my spirit guides in disguise. He had appeared to me in physical form to get my attention. And he came the first 3 times that we had a meeting. He appeared as the homeless man. And after that, he was just the voice in my head, and we communicated by telepathy. And he said he appeared in that fashion because if he had started talking to me just as a voice in my head, I may have thought I was losing my mind. So it was his way of easing me into the conversation. So we had a great dialogue. I asked him all the questions that have been bothering me for most of my life. The big eternal questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my life purpose? And the big one, which is what happens to me when I die. And I know what I had been taught as a child. I'd been raised as a Roman Catholic. But in my 20s and 30s, I'd started rejecting most of their beliefs. They just didn't seem to hold water to me, and I was looking for a new paradigm, a new pattern to latch onto. And Albert came along, and he fulfilled that need, and he told me that he basically had chosen me as a messenger, so it wasn't just to answer my questions, but I was to write a book about his revelations so everyone could have access to them. So that led to me writing Dancing on a Stamp. And and the second book, we can get into that when you're ready, it was sort of our second set of encounters, which were substantially different from the first, but very interesting in their own right. And so I'm basically Albert's messenger, and I'm here to write his books, and I really quite enjoy that. It's really quite a change from practicing law. I really enjoy dealing with Albert and sharing his wisdom with everyone, and I hope people will enjoy what he has to say.
So go ahead, Ramon.
I was gonna say, why was he allowed to show himself to you? Because I'm sure there's a lot of guides out there that they look at the person they're guiding and just shake their head and like, no, don't do that. So why was he? I don't know.
Why did he make such direct contact? Good question.
Yeah.
I asked him that, and he said, because typically, we all have spirit guides, as you know, and they do try to communicate with us, but it's very subtle. Most of the time, it's a flash of intuition or a whisper in your mind or a gut feeling. So they don't generally get the opportunity to talk sort of in a direct dialogue by telepathy like I had with Albert. And I said to Albert, so, why did you do this for me? What's different? He said, well, they really wanted to, they've been trying to reach me all my life and I wasn't listening very well. But he said, I really needed to have direct contact with you in a sort of a verbal dialogue so that you could remember what we said, write it all down and then put it into a book. So it was because they wanted this direct communication so I could write a book of his revelation. So that's why. Generally, most people don't get that direct contact with their guides. And in fact, I don't have direct contacts with my other guides. I don't even know who they are. And Albert won't tell me. He said it's not something I need to know. And he won't tell me anything about my personal life. He won't help me with personal decisions. He says that's not his role in contacting me. It's to have a dialogue with me and show me things so I can write about it. So it's just he just decided that was the best way for me to channel his messages, and so that's how he appeared.
So had he been trying to contact you earlier in your life, and you just weren't aware of it?
Well, he said, he would be like his other guides. He would give me the usual subtle messages, and I would hear some of them and not hear some of them. He just knew that if his message was going to get across to the people of the world through me, he had to do something more dramatic, and he did. So he showed up as a homeless man, stopped me in my tracks, got my attention, which he surely did. And then once I sort of was comfortable with him, then we just had this dialogue, which went on for several months after the first encounter.
Wow.
Did you find yourself being extremely skeptical? For example, if somebody else would have come up to you and talked to you about the same things just on a regular basis, would you been like very skeptical and just moved on?
Absolutely. Yeah, I certainly would. And the reason that I sat and talked to this man was because of his of this wave of unconditional love that he was sending me, which it's really hard to describe, but it's just like when he looked at me, I just felt this this sense of peace and security, and that there was this, that I was being loved, unconditionally in an amazing fashion. And I knew that, so to me, that meant that he was a special person. Didn't know at first who exactly he was, but I knew he was special, and I knew I had to sit there and figure it out. It was just too amazing, and it was something that I couldn't pass up, or I'd regret it forever. So that's why I sat and had the conversation with him. And then as we went on with the conversation, then I realized, as he was speaking to me, that he really was my spirit guide. He's a very special person, and he had just showed up to in that fashion to get my attention. So, and it worked very well. I mean, I resisted the temptation to just make a quick sidestep and go around him when he first stopped me, which I usually did when I encountered homeless people on that street. But he had these amazing eyes that just held my attention, and he stopped me, and I'm very glad he did. So anyway, I know that he knew exactly what he had to do, Ramon, to get my attention and stop me, and he did it very well. And of course he's a spirit in the spirit realm, and they have a way bigger picture of what happens on Earth and what humans do, and so he has a lot more powers of thought and so on to handle things on the denser planes, and so he used those very effectively. So he did his job the way he wanted to.
Yeah. To kind of go off that and go into the new book, but start off with our conversation that we were having earlier when we first started. What is your take, or even Albert's take, on the whole exposure to the public of extraterrestrials?
Well, we did. In fact, I went to, as I describe in my second book, we actually visited a set of intelligent extraterrestrials on their own home planet, and then secondly, he took me to a faster than light spacecraft that was orbiting the Earth, and we met a different race there. So I mean, there's absolutely no question that there's millions of different life forms in our galaxy. And of course, our galaxy is just one of, I don't know, I heard the other day 100 billion galaxies. I mean, it's just an amazing number, all kinds of life forms. Some are not as developed as us. A lot of them are very much more developed than us. So we're sort of, there's a whole spectrum of different kinds of life forms. They definitely exist. And extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth for, right since day one, monitoring what's going on. The activity has increased, as you probably know, ever since the atom was split in the Second World War, because that sort of got a lot of people's attention, and they've been watching us and trying to help us, as they can. And Albert says that they haven't revealed themselves yet because they are concerned that that you mentioned earlier, Tom, about the fact that people may panic. So they're trying to gradually edge the public into an awareness of their presence, and so when people cite UFOs, I mean, they don't have to be seen. According to Albert, they can be totally disguised and not detectable by radar or anything else, but they're deliberately sort of letting more and more of their sightings occur so that humans will be sort of getting more comfortable with the idea. And then when the time is right, they will say, okay, we can go ahead and make direct and open contact. And that will happen. There's no question.
Okay, so let's back up just a minute, and let's go back to the beginning of this next chapter here of your experience with Albert, and let's take off from the beginning there. I mean, you're talking about going out with Albert and visiting these other planets, these other extraterrestrial races. How did this next chapter start? How did you get out in there? How did Albert take you out there?
Well, we had sort of finished our dialogue that resulted in Dancing on a Stamp, and Albert said that he was going to sort of get out of my life for a little while so I could write my manuscript, and he wouldn't bother me. So he sort of went AWOL for a while, and I was beginning to wonder where he was. because he told me I was going to write not only a second book, but a third and a fourth. And so I was thinking about writing the second book, but I knew that I needed his input for the second book. I wasn't going to just pull it out of thin air. So I was starting to wonder when he would show up. And so one night I was sleeping in my bed. I heard a noise. I sat up in bed, and standing in the doorway of my bedroom was this ghost-like ethereal figure. And when it moved closer to the foot of my bed, I could see that it was my old friend Albert in his homeless man attire, but in astral form. And so I said, well, hi, Albert, thanks for coming back. I've been waiting for you. And what's up? What are we doing? He said, I'm going to take you on a series of astral trips to see things that I think you should write about. And in my view is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So rather than just describe what I want you to know about, I'm going to take you and show you things, and then you can write about it in your book. And I said, well, okay, like how long are we going to be? Do I have to tell my wife where I'm going? And, and who's going to take out my garbage in the morning? And he said, oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be traveling astrally. Your physical body will stay behind, and then you'll be back in it before the morning, so not to worry. So then he reached out, grabbed my hand actually, and just pulled my astral body out of my physical body. I turned and looked around, and my physical body was still laying in bed asleep. And so that seemed to work okay. And he said, come with me. So we just sort of rose up through the ceiling and up through the clouds and ended up hovering way above our beautiful planet, and he let me turn around and look at it. And it was like, it's really quite an amazing sight, because our planet from that vantage point is just like a beautiful jewel, floating in a sea of black ink. It's really quite spectacular. Anyway, so that's how our trip started. Then he said, "Come with me. I'm going to take you to the spirit side. You're going to meet some of your family members who have deceased, and I'm going to take you into this beautiful white city called Aglaia." So we went through this shivering doorway. As I approached the doorway, there was you could see stars on either side of the doorway, but right in the middle of the doorway, there's nothing but inky blackness, like black velvet.
So was this just like a regular door, a house door?
Well, it was, yeah, except it was bigger, and it was just like sort of like the frame of it was sort of shivering and with its own light. So it didn't look like an ordinary house door, but it was shaped in a similar way, like it was rectangular.
Okay.
And so then he led me through this, and once we sort of passed through the doorway, all of a sudden there I am standing in the middle of this absolutely beautiful meadow. It was like lush green grass and amazing tall, majestic trees, and just resplendent with all kinds of wild flowers in like 1,000 different colors. Some colors we'd never seen on Earth. It was just an amazing display of color and perfume wafting up from these wildflowers that was almost intoxicating. So it was really quite an amazing scene, the most beautiful meadow you could ever imagine. And so he led me through the path through this meadow, and we went up sort of a low hill. And at the top of the hill, I looked down on the other side, and there I could see a group of souls, people standing, at the bottom of this hill. So as we got closer, then I started to recognize these people, and my heart skipped a beat, because I could see there was my mother and my father and my brother, who had all passed away, and grandparents and aunts and uncles, and they were all there as my welcoming party. And what's even more amazing was that our little dog, Oscar, who had passed away about 10 years ago, he came running out from behind, came running up to me with his tail wagging, and I knelt down, and he licked my face, and it was really nice, a hell of a welcome.
That's awesome.
Anyway, and so I was a bit apprehensive about one thing about that meeting, though, because my mother had been a very staunch, religious Roman Catholic lady. She was a fierce Irish lady who wanted us to observe all the rules of the church, and whether we wanted to or not, she made us go to church as often as she did. And she was very determined that her husband and her 5 kids would all make it to heaven, even if she had to drag us kicking and screaming. And so she was very staunch in that regard. And I thought, my first book, Dancing on a Stamp, was not kind to the Catholic Church. And with the help of Albert, a lot of their beliefs were just dismissed as being inventions of their holy men, not having any basis in reality at all. And I was concerned that my mother would be upset with me. So I went up to her and I being a bit apprehensive, and she could tell what I was thinking, and she said, not to worry. She said, if I was still on Earth, I would be very upset with you for what you wrote in your book. But now that I'm here, I can see the whole picture, and I'm glad you did it, and thank you for doing that. So big relief. So we all had hugs all around, and then Albert said, okay, we can't linger here. I've got an agenda for you. We've got to go see some other people, and someday you can come back and revisit with your family. So that was the first encounter. It was really quite amazing. And if anybody has any doubts out there that we don't survive our physical death, that should certainly convince me for sure, beyond a doubt, because there it was, all the people who had passed before me in my life were there they were in great shape and in wonderful form. So that is what happens to all of us. It was really good confirmation.
So you said that when you came over the hill and you said you saw a group of souls down there. Now, question I got for you there: did you have some innate knowing within yourself that they were souls, and instead of like in this dimension, we'd call them, oh, there's a bunch of people over there. We don't distinguish them as souls here. So did you have some sort of knowing that they were souls in a different dimension or whatever? I guess I'm kind of not really.
Well, I knew I was on the spirit side in the spirit realm. I could have just said I saw a bunch of people because they looked like humans on Earth.
Okay. I guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, they looked like humans, and so I didn't recognize them immediately. But as I got closer, then I could recognize them. And my mother and father, they looked like not as I last remember them, but they looked younger and more robust. And the same with the other people, but they didn't. Their appearance wasn't so different that I couldn't recognize them. So I knew immediately who they were. A few of them I didn't recognize because they were grandparents who had passed away before I remembered them. And I was introduced to them, but certainly the people that I knew, my mother and father and brother and the one grandmother that I knew, I could tell by looking at them who they were. And Albert says that the other part of it is that, souls on the spirit side, they can assume sort of whatever appearance they like, and they can appear as sort of the way they were in their last life, or they sometimes appear as somebody in one of the lives that they quite enjoyed or learned a lot in. So souls can just change their appearance, but everyone has a unique energy signature, according to Albert. So no matter what a soul is dressed up in or what their appearance they project, you can always tell who they are, and they can tell who you are. So that may have been part of it. I may have been unconsciously sort of recognizing their energy signatures as well.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean by that, recognizing the energy signature. But I think for a lot of people, at least for myself, running into family on the other side, I think for a lot of people, they usually break down and cry because, they miss them so much and stuff like that. Did you find it hard to be around them because of that, or it was just easy for you?
No, it was easy because they just welcomed me with open arms and embraced me with unconditional love, and it was a very happy, peaceful, secure feeling. I didn't feel, like, oh gee, I miss you guys. It was sort of like, I'm glad to be with you again. And I knew then for sure that I would be with them again, after my time had passed on Earth and I crossed over myself. I knew this was a temporary visit, but it really gave me the assurance that they were all well looked after, and they were very happy, and they were living in a beautiful space. And so I had no concerns over that, and I knew that I'd be back sometime, and I could spend more time with them. So it was a very, very happy, very exhilarating experience, actually.
So I'm curious about your level of awareness during this experience, because I know that I'm an out-of-body traveler, and I know a lot of people, if they haven't had that experience of the astral traveling or at the least the lucid dreaming sort of thing. I know that when I'm out in that state, that there is a certain amount of it's kind of hard to describe your level of awareness during the experience, but it's almost a little bit of a dreamy state while I'm in those places. Not taking anything out of the reality of the experience or the reality of the experience, at all. I don't want to take anything away from that at all. But did you have full cognitive ability during these experiences, or did you actually have some of the kind of the dreaminess about the whole experience?
Actually, I had full cognitive, senses about me. It was like my human mind was traveling in an astral form, so that I didn't reacquire all my memories of past lives or everything that I knew as a soul before I was incarnated, and that was sort of deliberate. They didn't want to overwhelm me, so I was sort of like my human mind traveling in astral form, but it was all very clear. And the next morning when I woke up, I remembered everything I had done and seen. It was very crystal clear, very vivid, and more so than any dream I've ever had in my life. And in fact, more so than any memory of my waking life that I can remember. It was absolutely crystal clear. And I think that was very deliberate so that I could have time to get to my computer when I woke up and start writing about my what I saw and what I did, and making good notes. And those experiences have faded a bit, the memories of them, but they're still way clearer than any dream I've had. Typically my dreams, when I wake up, even if I had a very vivid dream, it's sort of gone in a couple of hours. And that didn't happen here. So that's why, that's the obvious question. People have asked me, well, did you have an astral travel? Did you really travel? Or did you just have a dream? And I say, well, it's not like any dream I've had, and I really believe that I did actually leave my body and travel astrally with my spirit guide. So yeah, no, I did remember all things. It didn't seem dreamy to me at all. And I think that was deliberate on the good people on the spirit side who were arranging my trip. They wanted to make sure that I could remember everything very clearly, so that I could write my book. And so I think that's why it happened.
So when traveling with Albert and visiting the different ETs, were the ETs aware of your presence, or were you kind of phased out to their perception?
Yeah, no, they were aware, even though I was astral form and they were in dense matter form, because they were the people that we visited were on a dense plane like Earth is, and they can sort of they can move between dimensions and so on, and increase their vibratory rates if they want to. But when they were like the beings that are orbiting Earth, they were down on the dense matter plane because that's where they could best observe Earth. But they could see me, so they had the ability to see myself and Albert, who were in astral form, and we communicated with them by telepathy, so they could see us.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
So let's take it up from there. So after you left your family, and then where did he take you next?
Well, we strolled through the meadow and went towards this beautiful white city that he called Aglaia, which he said is one of the many cities on the spirit realm. So we went through the main entrance portal and strolled down the street, and all the buildings were sort of gleaming white, and there were towers and domes, and it was really quite a very beautiful, beautiful place. And the streets were full of people, souls, really. And the amazing thing about that was that they all looked different. They all had different color of skin. They all dressed differently. It was an amazing display of colorful garments from sort of all kinds of eras. There was togas from Rome and saris from Japan, and from all different ages. They were all wearing very colorful garb. I felt like I was dropped into the middle of a costume ball. And I said to Albert, well, what's going on? And as I mentioned before, he said, well, souls here can choose to appear in whatever form they want, whatever sex they want. And they will often do so based upon some previous life that they happen to enjoy, and then they can change it whenever they want. So I suspected that they were all putting on a colorful display just for my benefit. Because sometimes Albert says souls will just be a globe of glowing light. and oftentimes that's how they will sort of appear to others on the spirit side. So it was really quite a fascinating trip down the street. And then we ended up in a place that Albert called the Hall of Wisdom, which is a beautiful white building with really nice, huge pillars in the front. We walked up the steps and down the hall, and we entered Albert knocked on the door there, and when we heard enter, we entered this big, large room, and there was a council of wise old souls sitting around a semicircle table facing us. And Albert said this was the council of wise ones. And he said their job was to oversee all the incarnations on our planet Earth. And they're there to sort of give guidance to souls who are about to incarnate, to help them pick out a life that makes sense for them in terms of what they should learn and experience and for their evolution. So this council was there to oversee all that stuff that happened on Earth. And so we stood in front of their table, and the chair of the council, her name was Sophia, and she began to speak to me, and she said that they had asked Albert to bring me there because they had a message for humanity that I was to take back to Earth and put into my book. And so that was why he brought me before this council.
So what was this message? I got to know now.
Well, the message was probably no surprise to you guys. The message was, look, you got to tell your fellow humans that your civilization is at a very advanced stage, and you have very advanced technology, but your emotional intelligence has not advanced along with your technology, and so your civilization is still rife with negative emotions, with fear and hate and anger and jealousy, and that results in a lot of violence, and that results in your abuse of other creatures on your planet itself, and in fact other humans. And they said that we're sort of at a crossroads, and we need to sort of get past this point, because if we don't sort of control our negative emotions and clean up our act, so to speak, then we might be in danger of destroying all life on our planet, including ourselves, because we have weapons of mass destruction, and we're certainly capable of doing that. And if we let these get out of control or in the wrong hands, we could wipe out our civilization, just like many of the other ones in our human history on Earth, like Lemuria, Atlantis, and there was a few others that we're not even aware of. So we're sort of at that same point, and they're really determined to try to get us over this hump, to take the next step on the path to spiritual enlightenment, to help us increase our vibrations so that we can make the shift to the new Earth in a higher dimension. And we can't do that if we still harbor all of our negative emotions. So their message for me to take back to humans was, we really got to focus on embracing love and compassion, and try to discard and reject our negative emotions. And we need to do that before we cause a lot of harm to ourselves and our planet. So that was the main thrust of it. And they said that Albert was going to take me on a series of adventures to help me bring this message home to the people back on Earth, and that was my mission, and I was to go ahead and follow Albert and then write about it. So that was their message. I mean, I'm giving you the thumbnail sketch of it. There's more of it in my book, but that's basically what they said.
So, I know that you said within the city and within all these realms, souls have the ability to change their appearance to appear as they wish to be shown to others. I'm curious if Albert ever appeared in any other form than the homeless man for you.
Actually, he didn't, and I know he could have, and he in fact told me that he could, but he thought that he would still sort of carry through with the charade that we started with, and so he just kept up his homeless man appearance, and I was quite comfortable with that. So I didn't really have any need for him to change, but I suppose at some point that in our journeys he may well do that. But it didn't really bother him, didn't bother me to see him in that form, and I felt quite comfortable with that. So that's probably why he did it.
Yeah, in my experience, it seems like a lot of the other entities that are working with us in those other realms do just that. They do what they appear in the form that we're able to accept and find the most comfort with. Or on the other hand, if we need one of those frightening lessons, the scariest form,
Exactly.
Yeah. So from Aglia, where did we head off to from Aglia?
Well, he took me out of the spirit side, and we did a quick travel to a planet in our galaxy called Proteus, and we it's very, I mean, astral travel is more or less instantaneous. It's just like, sort of like Albert says, you think you want to be somewhere, and there you are. And I didn't know how to do this, so I just sort of followed along with Albert, and he guided me there. But we ended up hovering above this beautiful planet. It was totally covered in water, so it looked a bit like Earth, except it had no land masses, no continents. So we floated down towards this planet, and as we neared the surface of the water, I wondered what's going to happen next, and he said, "Come, follow me," and we sank below the surface. And of course, in astral form, you don't need to breathe, so that wasn't a big problem. Underneath the ocean, it looked much like the subsurface of some of the oceans on Earth, and I remember snorkeling in the Caribbean, and it looked very much like that. The plants and the fish, the colorful fish, and the rocks and the sand and everything else. It looked like I could have been under the Caribbean. So we traveled subsurface towards this big, huge structure that was really a big, giant coral, or looked like a coral reef, and floating in front of there were two creatures that I recognized from Earth, and one was a humpback whale, and one was a dolphin. And Albert introduced me to them, and we communicated by telepathy with these two creatures. And they said that Albert brought me there because they wanted me to take a message back to my fellow humans on Earth. And they said that they were, originally they said a lot of the sea life that's on Earth originated in Proteus and was seeded there by, a race of extraterrestrials who transported them in their spacecraft. And so that's why a lot of the sea life looks so familiar, because it actually did originate in Proteus, and it ended up in our planet. And they said that they still communicate with the whales and dolphins, their cousins, their kin on Earth, by telepathy over all these vast distances that between Earth and Proteus. And they said that they're very distressed at the messages they're getting from their cousins on Earth about the abuse that they have suffered over the centuries from humans, the hunting and the killing and the harpooning, and the fact that a lot of that has been curtailed now, but there's still a lot of abuse going on, and the whales and dolphins, and in fact the other creatures on Earth are very upset. It's like they want to live in harmony with humans. They don't want to cause humans any harm, and they don't understand why humans can't get along and live with them in peace and harmony, and why they continue to abuse them. And their message to me was, these two on Proteus, was, will you please go back and tell your fellow humans that the whales and dolphins on Earth are far more intelligent than we give them credit for.
Yep.
And they have feelings, and they have emotions, and they just want to live in peace and harmony with everyone, with their planet and with humans and every other creature. So please stop abusing them, and please understand that they have that they're creatures that should be loved and respected and treated with dignity. So that was the message that I got from them, and I agreed to take it back. And there's a chapter in my book about that, and hopefully humans will get the message, and not just for whales and dolphins, but for all the other creatures on our planet.
Yeah, what's amazing about whales and dolphins in particular, because elephants, I find that all three animals I just mentioned are extremely intelligent and have their own culture, language, and dialects, depending what region they're from. But with the dolphin and the whale, that, through all the abuse and stuff like that, yet they're still not vengeful, yet if there's a human drowning, they will go and save that human person. Plenty of times, if there's a shark attack and there's a dolphin around, they'll defend the human. which has happened, dozens and dozens of times. So it shows how big of a heart that they have.
Absolutely, and they're not vengeful creatures. Their emotional intelligence is actually far superior to humans in a lot of ways, because even though they've been abused by humans, they don't feel any hatred or animosity towards humans. And in fact, as you say, Ramon, they will help out humans where they can. They would like to have a stronger connection with us. They're always reaching out telepathically to try to communicate with us, but for the most part, we don't hear it. And so they're very frustrated, and they're trying to do their best to show that they want to spread their love to humans, even though we don't necessarily love them back. But they're trying to do their best, so it's very frustrating for them when they can't get their message through to us, Ramon. But they are trying.
Yeah, it almost seems like, at least the ones here on Earth, that they try to hide their intelligence to a certain degree. What I mean by that is that I find them even on the like, they don't have cars and planes and things like that, but I find them that they're just as evolved in that manner if they wanted to.
Yeah, they are. They don't have any need for technology. They're quite happy to live in their own world or our world, but as they see it, without technology, they don't have any need for that. And they do sometimes play dumb, because as one of them said that some of the whales and dolphins in captivity, when their trainers are training them, they know exactly what they're supposed to do, but they kind of learn slowly to make the trainers think that they've really done something great by teaching this dumb animal a trick. So they do try to fool us once in a while.
Yeah, because I've had the experience to swim with dolphins in two parts of the world, and it's just when you're in front of a dolphin and they're there with you, you realize that you're not that intelligent, compared to them. Like, it's just this. I don't know how to explain it, but
well, you're a good exception to the general rule, because a lot of humans just think that they're just animals that aren't, maybe they have more intelligent than some creatures, but they're not anywhere nearly as intelligent as us. And so it's great that you realize that. If more people realize that, then we could start treating them with more dignity and compassion than we have, over the years.
Just on the scientific end of things, they say humans use, on the average, about 10% of our brains. What was it, Ramon? I think they're saying that the dolphins use 20%?
70? No, it was really high, and not only that, but their brains are, double the size of ours?
Yeah, quite a bit bigger, yeah.
And their language is a lot more complex than ours. I mean, that alone should prove, what we're talking about. A whale's brain size is it's almost like the size of half my body. So the language being complex, and for example, I'll give you another animal like the elephant. They're known to be a little vengeful, but I don't blame them either. But as far as like culture, they always make it sound like only humans have culture. But when an elephant dies from the female herd, they'll leave the bones there, and then they'll leave the body there, come back when it's been picked clean, pick up the bones, and take it to their family graveyard.
Wow.
I mean, if that's not a sign of culture, I don't know what is. I mean, that's a burial rite right there.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you, Ramon, and as I said, I wish that more people on our planet would be enlightened as you guys are about this. But there's just too many people who think they're just dumb animals, which is really not true. But anyway, and I got a bit of a lesson about elephants further on in my astral travels. If you want to hear about that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we left Proteus, the water planet, and we went scooting back to Earth, and again we're traveling astrally. So Albert said, I just want to really hit you over the head with this business about how humans have been abusing other animals on your planet, needlessly. So he took me to a shark finning boat off of Indonesia. And there, I've never seen this before, but there it was this big, large boat, and they were reeling in sharks on their long lines, and they would get them on the deck, and they would, with long knives, they would cut off their fins and then toss the still alive shark overboard to suffocate or to be eaten by predators. And all they were taking were their fins, and they were taking the fins to sell for shark fin soup.
Wow,
which is really disgusting. And if you could ever see this, I was literally ready to throw up, even though, of course, you can't throw up when you're in astral form, but it was awful. And he said, this is a needless killing of sharks just for something that's not needed by humans. Like shark fin soup is not a necessity. It doesn't, you don't need that to live. It's just a delicacy in China and other parts of Asia. And so that was, he just said this goes on all over the place. And then he scooted me over to Zimbabwe, and there we came down upon a field with a bunch of slaughtered elephants. There must have been like 3 or 4 dozen. And there were poachers there with chainsaws who are sawing off their ivory. And, it was obvious to me. He said, look, these are poachers. They're killing these elephants for their ivory. No one needs ivory but an elephant. And so people use the ivory for trinkets, and some use it for, medicinal purposes, which is all, phony. And these poachers they get a great price for this ivory. And he said the tragedy is getting worse because they used to shoot the elephants with rifles. He says now they're getting smart, and they're actually learning to poison them with cyanide because they can kill a whole bunch a lot quicker. And this sort of herd of elephants had been poisoned with cyanide, and they were just laying there. The carcasses were just laying there dead, and these poachers were sawing off their tusks. And he said, there you go, humanity. Why are you treating this majestic creature, the elephant, this intelligent creature, with such abuse merely just to get, their ivory, which doesn't make any sense. So that really hit home as well. And it was really awful to see these elephants being slaughtered in that fashion. I mean, and this goes on. I mean, I know governments are trying to stop it, but obviously if they really wanted to stop it and put enough resources into it, the poachers would be stopped. But so far, it still goes on.
Right. There is a lady who just had enough, and she took her gun out there, and she hunts poachers. Like she'll stay around the area of the animals. When she see poachers, she'll hunt them down. And I don't know what happened. I think they were trying to take it to criminal court because, she killed several poachers and stuff like that. And she said it was all self-defense because the animal can't defend itself. So she's acting as a defendant.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sort of extreme vigilante kind of action. I don't think that's, for her sake, that's not a good idea because you probably will end up in jail. But I think, it's going to take the governments and the people of the world to pour the resources into where it's needed so that the police or the army or wherever it is in Zimbabwe and the other countries can make sure that the poachers cannot carry on their operations. And that's really what it takes. And people have to be aware of the abuse. And if you don't, until you actually see it yourself, it's it really doesn't hit home the way it should. And I think that hopefully we can all turn the corner on this and do what we can to help the poachers. I don't advocate taking a rifle and shooting the poachers. I don't think that's just using violence against violence. I think we have to find other ways of doing this, Ramon.
I think all the poachers need to be reincarnated as elephants.
Sharks. Yeah. Good point, Tom. And maybe they will.
I agree with you. I think that's the wrong way about it, but at the same time, I understand her point of view because it's kind of hard for you to be out there holding a sign and getting signatures and things like that, and meanwhile the black rhino, the last black rhino, was just killed.
Especially in some of these third world countries that are basically operated by warlords. So
the complete corruption.
Where it is a well bought and paid for government that it's really hard to get any kind of an action along those lines done. I honestly think that the answer to that sort of thing is going to have to be that, I don't know if it comes through in the 100th monkey effect or not, where the awareness of the population of the planet is raised to the level of knowing that those are sentient, living beings that by all rights have just as much right to be here as we do.
Yeah, I think on top of that, it's also the whole food and money thing, because these poachers don't come from rich families,
right?
Except those hunters, but most of these poachers don't come from rich families. So if that didn't pay good money, they wouldn't need to do that. Yeah,
exactly. Supply and demand.
Yeah, so if they were able to feed their families in a different way, and it's very selfish of them, but at the same time, understandable in the sense, like, either I feed my kid, they starve, or the elephant dies.
Yeah, well, there's other options too, though.
There's definitely always other options, Tom.
So we're at the top of the hour here, and before we press on to another topic here, let's go ahead and take our break, and we will be moving over into the members section. And if you're out there listening on one of those other formats, I urge you to go over to www.the100thmonkeyradio, where you can catch the second part of this. Garnet, where can people pick up your book at?
Well, there's buy links on my website, which is garnetschulhauser.com. All the online stores, the popular ones, are there. You can buy it at bricks and mortar stores, and if your favorite store doesn't have it, they can order it for you. As Ramon mentioned about his books, any bookstore can order it. It's readily available. It's in paperback format and ebook, so it's easily accessible. And the easiest way is just to go to one of the online stores on my website.
Yeah, and when we come back, I want to get more into the alien beings that Garnet met on his travels. So we'll get into that. Tom?
All right. Well, we will be back shortly as soon as you can click onto that next hour. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And we'll see you on the other side.
You've been missing along the way. Put aside your petty fight, serve your dignity. You've got to show the heart that you've been hiding and set it free. There's just one door, we're gone wrong. We only love it. And if the cure for one is the cure for us all, there's an urgent message trying to reach you. Excuse yourself and pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call. It came the same way the very next day. The words they just kept on coming through. Hard to conceive if you believe me. This is what you really want to do. You got to tune into your inner being. Now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision. Now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mindless chatter. Now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. Cause don't you know there's just one door in a world gone wrong. We only know it. And if the cure for one is the cure for all, step right up and don't be shy. Excuse yourself and pick up the call. Pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call. Pick up the call. my friends. You want to keep it complicated, it's really all quite simple in the end. You got to tune into your inner being, now let it be. You got to activate your inner vision, now let it see. Cast out the doubt, the mind is chatter, now let it go. It's time to tap into the heart of the matter. Cause don't you know, there's just one cure in the world gone wrong. We all need loving, and if the cure for one is the cure for us all, step right up and don't be shy. Got to look yourself right in the eye. There's a magic moment trying to meet you, an urgent message trying to reach you. The phone is ringing off the wall, so pick up the call. You gotta pick up the call.